Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Laser Sports Academy. This is Bootza. I am very excited to have a very special guest today. Anybody who's into running leagues and tournaments will be especially interested in today's episode. I have a ZLTAC player who's this year playing for the Orcas, had his first year back in Darwin, and Torn 5 developer, AJ Horseman, Mr. Meeseeks. Thank you for being with us, mate.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good, mate. Very good. Now, particularly some of our international audience might not have come across you before. Tell us a bit about you. When did you first start playing laser tag?
Yeah, so I've been playing laser tag just at local league at Laser Blaze Willerton. I started back in 2015. Every Wednesday since, pretty much, I've gone down and played league there, and then got into nationals in 2020 Darwin, as you said, and yeah, never looked back since, pretty much.
Yeah. So you're a Western Australian player.
Yes.
So you guys play on Laser Force over there, and then have the awesome fun of having to convert to zone when you come and play nationals.
Yeah, we get the great fun of all the different systems and all the different timings, and yeah, it's a great time.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that must be like for you guys. It's just an extra level of challenge, which is, I'm sure you guys just keep coming, so you must love it anyway.
Yeah. At least it makes less of a different source when they change the system that Nats runs on, so...
Yeah, true. And everybody's going to be on a new system this year, so everyone's going to be on an equal playing field, so that's going to be a bit easier. Cool, man. Well, yeah. So I'll provide a little bit of background for our viewers who don't know what Torn is and what Torn 5 is. So many of us, even in the international community, would know Doug Burbage, legend of the game. Actually, is in the ZLTAC Hall of Fame, and he's been around since the 90s. He was setting up laser tag venues in the US and Australia, and helping and played a huge role in getting laser sporting off the ground here in Australia. He was a developer, and he developed Torn back in the day. It was our first tournament management software. So he has kind of hung up the boots, so to speak, and handed over to you, is what I understand. Can you tell us a little bit about how all that kind of played out?
Yeah, so Doug was, obviously he played in WA as well. He was playing a lot around the same time when I first started. My first Nats team back in 2020, he was on the same team as me. Even my first league team back in 2015, he actually was on my team back then and showed me the ropes of how to play and everything.
It was destiny, mate.
Yeah, so I have a lot of respect for Doug. He's a great guy. He's done a lot for the laser tag community, and I don't think anyone can doubt that. So when he basically just asked me if I'd like to pick it up for him and continue on when he is retiring, and if I'd like to take over for him and continue to work on Torn, and I was honoured to be given the opportunity to do that. Yeah, that's pretty much how it went down. He just reached out to me and said, would you like to continue it on?
Yeah, what a massive honour, hey? And such a huge amount of value for the community. I mean, all of us have used Torn. Like, I've been running leagues for 20 years since I've been here in Queensland, and we've used Torn for a majority of that time. It's an absolutely indispensable tool when trying to run competitions and leagues. So to have it continued on by you, mate, we're all really grateful. And when I reached out to ask you whether you were okay if I could utilise the software, you were very forthcoming, and I'm very grateful for that, very appreciative. And since converting back to Torn, because we were using another tournament manager for a few years there, I've been absolutely thrilled and stoked at just how reliable it is, how fast it is, and just how many features and reports are available to us. So let's kick it off, mate. Would you like to give us a basic tour through and pretend I'm a newbie? I've never used Torn before. Give us the basics.
Well, let me pull up a screen and I'll show you and walk you through it all. So, okay, so this here is Torn. So this is Torn 5, obviously. It's a complete rewrite from scratch of the old version, which was Torn 4, which had similar sort of stuff in it to track your games and everything. So this takes the same idea and just makes it a whole lot easier to do things. So the idea is that you can connect up to a few different systems. We've got Laser Force, Ozone, Demo server, traditional Nexus Helios servers, Um, or you can also connect to another version of Torn running on another machine, and it'll fetch games from that Torn. But the idea is anyway, you'll set it all up in here. Once you're connected, you can fetch the games from the server and get a list of all the games that are on there and all the scores of all the players.
Now, I'm just noticing on your screen, there's no leagues listed on the left-hand box.
Yes, correct. I'm not currently set up with any league in there, but what I can do is open up an existing one or create a new one. So if I go into here, I can open up the Prenats2 Torn file that I created at Prenats2, and I can fetch all the games from there and have every single game from that tournament listed in here. So I can click on any one of those games and it will give me, if I click into that, there we go, the scores of all the players and everything from those teams. And
one of the things I loved, just to butt in quickly, mate, I just want to tell you, one of the things I loved a lot about the way you'd set it up is where it says league on the left-hand side of the screen there. So for the viewers at home, if you have multiple leagues that you're running, they will be listed in there. So, like, working in a different league is as simple as just going and clicking in the other league that you want to work in, which is super handy rather than having to reopen different files each time, which takes time and is a bit laggy. I loved that feature where I could just flick between them and bam, the games from that league come up and I can start committing into that league. Yeah. Now that window to the right sorry.
Yep, no, continue what were you going to say?
I was just going to ask about the window just to the right of where all the games are listed. What typically goes in there?
So this one here is for games before you've actually committed them. It'll list all your players into these boxes here, for instance, and automatically organize them for you. But if, say, for instance, someone's logged into a pack that they shouldn't have, you don't want that pack to be in the game. If you drag them out into here, that means they're no longer assigned to a team. So you can commit the games without committing every single pack. You can rearrange the packs as well and put them where they're meant to be to assign them to different teams.
Yeah. So essentially, game happens, information automatically comes through to here, or you click the latest button. Is that right? Click the latest button, and that will drag the latest information in.
The latest will fetch the latest games from whatever server you are connected to, and it'll list them from top to bottom of most recent games and oldest games. I've got a pretend server that I'm connected to here. It's not a real server, which is why all of these latest ones from the server are down beneath my files because they've got fake dates on them. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And then you basically say it's the first game of the tournament and nothing has happened yet. Essentially, the software will automatically put all the packs into color order on the right-hand side. And from there, you can make any adjustments and things that you might need to make.
Yeah, so as you can see here, this game is uncommitted because it's not highlighted and it doesn't have the league name on there. And when you select a game like this, it also highlights all the players in there green if they aren't in your current torn file yet. So it'll just alert you like these are new players, they're not in your tournament. It just gives you kind of the indication that something new here, just in case you need to know. Yeah, and then it automatically sorts them into team groupings based on color. And then you can just hit the commit button and it will create them pretty straightforwardly. If I actually close this and create a new blank league, you can see here, for instance, that it's got all these players. I can commit these teams to this file and it will automatically name each of them after the highest scoring player in the team.
I did not know that. That's freaking cool. There you
Yeah.
go.
And then from the screen, you can actually quite easily just name the team and call it Team Awesome. And that'll straight away just change their name throughout. And then the next time you commit a game with the same players, it already knows what their team names are, and you can commit them, and it will continue on with that.
So if you were like an operator just wanting to run a casual league for a work group that's come in and just wants to do a little round robin tournament, like it's just so simple to get going, isn't it? Literally just open up, start a league, start committing things, and things get automatically named and grouped.
Automatically named, everything's in there. Obviously, there are some configuration, like at the moment by default, won't do it with victory points. It'll just do it based on the average scores of the teams throughout the entire comp. but that's all fully customizable to be based on victory points or whatever you want, which I can show off as well in here.
So just before we get into that, because
Yes.
once we open that can of worms, we're going to have a lot to talk about.
There's a lot more, yes.
If we could just right-click on any one of the players on the right-hand side. So just to show the audience what you can do from this screen, essentially. From there, take us through like basically what you can do.
Yeah, there's a few different things you can do in here. One useful one that I've introduced recently is manage terms. So in here you can manage post-game terms or change terms that have happened in game. I think I have an example here. Yeah. This player here, Elmo, he has this one Y next to him, and that means he received one yellow term in the game. So you can actually manage terms and view that he got that term in the game at this timestamp, and you can update it here, and you can add in a reason, unsafe movement, and say it was actually a red term, which has already got the pre-applied values to it. So you can upgrade it in there and add a second term as well, and apply that, and you can see he's now got a red and a yellow applied to him. So it makes it a lot easier to track because it keeps a full record of here are all the terms that are applied, whether they were applied in-game or after-game, and it's not just manipulations of scores. There's actual reasons in there for why did this score change from what was reported on the scoreboard.
Simi is going to love you.
Yeah.
So at Nats, we have a thing called a penalty tracker or a ref tracker, a separate bit of software where we put all the terms in so that we can keep track of, what's getting termed and all that kind of thing. So what I'm guessing is that you're just going to be able to punch a report out straight from the software here, which automatically does all that for us.
Yeah, I don't have a report generating yet that'll give you like all the terms for players, but that is the idea that eventually I'll add that. Currently, just on like the solo ladder, it'll give you like an average number of terms a person has received throughout the comp.
So we're finally going to be able to get into the people who get termed the most. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
That's information we don't have yet. That'll be really handy.
Yeah.
There's only ever 1 year that's ever happened, and I got the most terms in the comp. So I'm going to be happy to. That was 2006. Nice. I got 23 terminations in one comp. So I'm happy to hand that baton over to somebody else in the coming year. That'll be good. Awesome, mate. Yeah. So
there are some other things in here as well that is probably pretty useful to know. For instance, in a game, say a player swaps their pack halfway through a game because it has some problems with it or whatever, and they walk back into the arena. You can have on here two instances of the same. I don't have an example, I don't think, in any of these, but a player, two big Bs, for instance, right? You can select them, imagine these are both big B, and then you can merge them together so that their scores go into the same person.
Okay. Now, does this... So, I'm going to jump into this a bit earlier than I was going to ask, but I have the constant issue, which everybody probably has, of like there's three of the same person on the solo ladder. Is this going to help resolve that, or is there another part of the software that can resolve that?
Okay, so that one would probably be more if they've played on a different membership card, that there might be multiple of the same player. That one you can fix. That's not through merging player, but through re-identifying the player. So on here, if you right-click on a player, you can go identify loose cannon. And then, I don't know if this is going to work because I'm not actually connected to a real server, but the idea is here that you'd then be able to search up that player's alias for whatever their card is linked to. And then select their real card from the list. And then you can re-identify them as that player instead. And that should, in theory, fix most of those issues. The caveat is that they need to have played already on their real card for you to be able to re-identify them as that one.
Yeah. Now, if you get to the end of the season and you want to like go back and do the entire season, is there yet a fast way of doing that, or you really?
There is not currently a fast way to do that. No.
Yeah, cool. No, just thought I'd check that because I'm one of those guys who waits at the end of the season to do it. So
yeah.
I need to change that habit. Most likely is the solution to that problem.
Yeah. No, but this is basically the way that you can at least re-identify them, or even if they've played on another membership entirely, you can change them over to say, no, actually that's this person. They picked up the wrong card. So there's ways around it. You just need to keep track of it and is still a bit of a pain.
Yep. Cool. And then, of course, other things in there in that menu include being able to grade players if you have a handicapping system.
Yes, I can walk through that one as well. That one is actually quite useful and brand new to Taunt 5.
Yeah, okay. That's the handicapping system or the...
Yes.
Yeah, let's take us through that then, because I was very
Yeah.
impressed with that, because the thing that got me about it the most was the versatility of it. It managed... We had a kind of particular handicapping system that we used that I don't think really anybody else was using, but it still managed to, you know, do what we needed it to do. So yeah, take us through it, mate. I can't wait for the audience to see
Yeah.
this little bad boy.
I'm going to open this one up. This is one of our leagues from Willerton that uses this Taunt 5 and uses our handicapping system. So I'll just click on a game first and show you an example of what it does. So you can see here up the top of each of the team boxes, it has a percentage handicap. Now, Taunt 5 have added in automatic handicapping based on player grades. So at the beginning of the season or throughout the season as you have new players join, you can assign a grade to them, which is then worth so many points. Using these points, we can then calculate a total weighting for the team and assign a handicap multiplier to their score. So that, based on these grades, this team has a cap of 103%, which means their score gets multiplied by 1.03. Likewise, 97% multiplied by 0.97, etc., etc. So what's really nice in Taunt 5 is Taunt 4 had the ability to handicap teams, but you had to manually specify what percentage multiplier to apply to that team. Whereas with this, all you need to do is assign grades to players, and even if that player then plays on a different team in that season, the cap is automatically worked out. Yeah, fill-ins come in as long as they have a grade assigned to them. Everything is automatically calculated. So in here, you set this up, and it's quite nice and easy to understand. So in the handicap, first of all, when you're creating a new season, you go through. In here, this will be disabled by default. So before you commit your first game, go in, tick automatic handicap enabled. And then you specify by default, these are all the default values. Team size of 5. If you're missing a player, this is going to apply a penalty of 2 points to that team. So it's going to make your handicap worse if you're missing players.
Just to explain that to the audience, the theory there is that if you have one less player on the team, there's less points for the other teams to get off your team, essentially, because there's less targets to shoot. So they apply a penalty to basically penalise your team for missing a player to kind of adjust for that.
But I make all of these values customizable so that if your league's run differently and you want to change any of these values, you can. But these are all based on what we run at WA leagues. So I'll explain these two in a minute, but over in the grades, we've got the default set here for all the WA grading systems. So we have our AAA down through to a G grade. And these are just how many points each of these grades are worth. And then these tick boxes are what these values are here. So if you've got a AAA or an A, you get if you have two of them, you get a penalty added to your score so that you can't stack your team with really good players. And if you have two of the G grades, which are basically brand new players, you'll get points taken off your team so that it give you a better handicap, an encouragement for picking up new players.
And the penalty point is if they have, say, one A and one AAA, they will get the penalty point, won't they? So any multiples of anything that's ticked, essentially.
Yes, that's correct.
Yep.
And then over here, this is just the mapping of the total team's points to a percentage. So this is, again, set to the default for what we run at WA leagues, but you can customize it for if you have a different grading system at wherever you're running. And I've added a couple of buttons here to automatically generate these for if we're running doubles versus triples versus league. Some pre-filled values.
Are they buttons? I saw those this morning and I was like, oh, I wonder if they're buttons that a user can add for their own leagues, or are they just something you've used?
Not currently, no. No, this is currently all just set by, made it handy for me to just be able to preset these values. I could possibly add more presets if it's required, but it could become messy pretty quickly if everyone wanted a button in there. So, but this is pretty new. This section here put in basically so that Queensland could start doing some of their own things.
Yeah, well, we have our handicapping system is like 12 different grades, and the number of points, like it goes from like 5 points up to, I don't know, 60 or 70 points or something like that. Like there was just
Yeah,
a
right.
lot more data or individuations of gradings and percentages and stuff like that than what you guys use, and it handled it fine. Yeah, I just
Yeah, that's good.
punched it all in there and it worked beautifully. So, mm,
Yeah, so that's good. So once you've got all this set up and you've assigned how many points each grades and all that are worth, you can go into your teams, and there's a couple of different ways to do it, but you can see in here, had lots of players play on that team. Uh, if you click on them and you go to their, where is it? Great. If you click on the players, you can see anyway, they've got all these grades assigned to them. And this is just making sure essentially that everything is set up correctly. But when you've got your actual game here, it obviously lists a player's grade, but you can change their grade by just right-clicking, going on the grade, and then selecting from this drop-down any of the grades that you've predefined. So right now, Washed Up Prodigy is a A. I can make him a G, and I could recommit that game, and it would change the handicap for that team, which is pretty handy just by simply changing that and recommitting. Changes the score and the handicap.
yeah,
So it makes it
we,
nice and
we
easy to
update
do regrades.
we regrade every 2 weeks, so that feature is like so handy.
Yeah,
takes
incredibly
takes it.
useful.
Yeah, the first game or two that go through after the regrading take a touch longer because you've got to right click on everybody, but then everything's remembered, and then you get to 3 or 4 games into the night, and it's quick again. The first time I punched a game out on Torn, I had the scores up on the Torn board before the players had even left the arena. It was that
Yeah,
fast.
yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. No, it's quite useful that. Yeah. Because also the other handy thing is if you have a player who hasn't yet been added to your league play a game, it'll highlight them as well. Just point out, this player doesn't have a grade. Please apply one before you commit. Otherwise, your handicap's going to be wrong.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
quite useful.
it's very obvious. Like you can't miss it essentially.
Yeah. Um. Okay. There is another thing as well that I was going to show with this that is quite nice. Give me 1 second. There it is. Okay. So this is Tornboard, which is something that we've been using with Torn for a very long time. So this is the old software that actually Torn talked to. So Torn 4 talked to. So it's quite old, but I've enabled Torn 5 to be able to connect to it as well. So what is handy is just by committing a game or by pressing the update score button, it'll throw the results of that game with the handicaps applied to the Torn board. So hit that button and nothing happens. What?
I can verify.
Oh,
things
that's what. There we
usually
go.
do happen. There we go. Whee!
A little pop-up box. But select any of these games here, update scoreboard, and it'll come up here with both the scores, the handicap, as well as the tag ratios for each of the players that were in that game.
All the relevant information.
And this, you can just run this tiny little Torn board on any computer in your center, as long as it's on the same network as where you're running Torn, and hit the button, and it will automatically go to the screen that this is running on. Which, yeah, just nice and easy to show the handicap scores after the end of a game.
Absolutely, absolutely. And is there with the scoreboard? Is there any features where you can export the scoreboard to a stream or a website or anything like that?
Not the scoreboard, but there is reporting. So, for the league, we have this concept of either ad hoc reports or a generated report. So, I'll walk you through ad hoc first because it's got a few of the different options that are available. So in here with the league selected, you just hit the ad hoc button up the top. And then probably the one that probably is most relevant is the team ladder. So with this, I can select the team ladder from the list of many different reports that I've got available. And for this case, as you can see, I've got lots of different descriptions on each of the games that we've got throughout all of this. So for now, I'll just select the round robin from the description list. And for some extra information, I can tick this button, which will show me the color results as well for each of the teams. And I can hit OK on that one, and that'll pop up this little box that shows me the results of the teams throughout the season on each of the colors. So obviously this season was set up with victory points, so 6 points for first, 4 for second, 2 for third. So it'll sort it by the victory points and then sort it after that by the average score of the teams. So once you've got a report like this, there's a couple of different options, but basically most of the time you're probably going to want to save it as a PNG image. Usually tick the PNG and put your scale up to 4 to get the resolution nice. The reason we have the scaling there is because sometimes if you've got a massive report that you're printing out, it's just going to become a massive file if you scale it up too high. So we have the option in there so you can tweak it, but I find usually 4 is the sweet spot for most reports. From here, you can save that image to wherever you want, and then you just got a generated PNG image of that in that location, which is somewhere that I put it. But from the screen, you can also throw it directly to your torn board, which is that same software I showed before. So you can throw whichever ladders you want onto there.
Did somebody really call their team a series of numbers and letters?
Yeah, if you translate that, it turns into one of the staff's name.
Okay, I don't know how to speak that language, but I'll take it.
Yeah. We like to have fun here.
Good.
Okay. Yeah, so that's one of the report types that we've got, but we've got lots of different ones here. One of the really nice ones, actually, that I like is this multi-ladder. This one was actually done by Doug before he handed the project over to me, and it's really nice. So with the multi-ladder, assuming you've got your names in here for round robin finals and grand finals, if you hit this button, it'll actually show you how the teams progress and change placings throughout each of the rounds of the competition.
That's how you get that report, because I've been watching this report come out of Prenats, and I've been what is that one? Where are they getting that from?
So that's the multi-report.
Multi-report, right.
Yeah, multi-ladder, yeah. So that'll show you the transitions.
Yeah,
the caveat with this is...
I loved how you will did it like round robin, Cascade 1, Cascade 2, and you can see the movements up and down each one. It was brilliant.
Yeah. So the trick with this one is you have to have the description set for each of your games throughout your competition. There are certain terms that you need. So for the round robin, it needs to either be called like round robin or cascades or something like that for it to go into this column. And then you have to have finals or format D or something 2-track for that section of the comp. And then grand finals for your final 3 games that don't care about victory points anymore. And then it'll spit out this very nice looking report.
Yeah, cool. And it looks even prettier with more teams on it, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. The if we open back up to PN2, which I think was this one here. Multi-ladder. Yeah, something like that across multiple sections of the comp. It looks very nice across those.
Yeah. Yep. And then there's, of course, you've got a what we used to call the game by game is now called the everything report.
Yeah, so we've got the everything report, which
is essentially basically a scorecard for every game, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is every game of PN2, so it's not quite readable. But if we go into that, select everything with the description containing grand finals, it makes it a little bit better. Give it a second.
And you can select a date range too. So if you're running a league, you can just go, I just want the everything report for this week, and it'll just spit out this week's.
Yeah.
Or each game for that particular week.
Yeah. That one didn't actually quite. What's going on there? Okay. Apparently the everything report isn't filtering. That's a bug I'll look into later.
Hey, we found a bug. Fantastic.
Yeah, so the everything report has all of the tags for tags against everything in there, so it's quite a detailed report. I also have a slimmed down version of that called the detailed games, which will just give you the key pieces of information. So it just breaks down the player scores. So it's a little bit easier to read.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. And is there any other reports in there that you can that are cool that we might not know? I noticed there's one called Sanity Check. I'm not sure what that's called. What that that one is.
That one you'd have to ask Doug. That's one that was in there beforehand that I'm not entirely sure what it does.
That's what something the techies look at, hey, to make sure
Yeah.
things make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, the other handy one, which is the one that we use for at the end of a grand finals, is we'll select our game grid, select that it's only grand finals games, and tick the ignore points button. And that'll give you your scores for each of the games for the grand finals as well as the average scores.
Oh, cool.
So that one's quite a handy one to have in there.
Yeah. Oh, that's great because when you're presenting the results, that's essentially what you want.
Yeah, this is what I'll always hand off to whoever's reading out the finals results to read out.
Yeah. There's only one more bit of information that I like to have in addition when I'm reading out results, and that's the total after 2 games. It's a great way to build suspense when you're announcing the results. So the results after 2 games are this, and this, and then you can announce the final game in whatever order makes it more suspenseful, essentially.
Yeah. I feel like it's more suspenseful having everyone trying to do the mental maths in their head for 3 teams.
True. There you go. Now, I just want to also clarify for the audience, you might see a cursor buzzing around. I can assure you this is purely just the software we're using to do this podcast. Yeah. It's got nothing to do with Torn itself.
It all looks fine on my actual screen. It's just the stream is a little bit odd.
Yep. So just ignore that if you can. Thank you. Yeah, cool.
So yeah, there's a bunch of those different reports, but you can have a play around basically if you want and see them. But one of the useful things that you can do, rather than just having all these ad hoc reports that you can either throw to your Torn board to save an image of, you can generate a custom report that you can export to an HTML page. So this one's the fun one. So with your league selected, you go into the configure section. And from here, you can select a whole bunch of the other reports that we've been talking about. So for instance, I could grab my multi-ladder, chuck it in there, add a page break in, and then add in like the team ladder with the colors on there so we can see the breakdown of how the colors did throughout round robin. And then I can add a page break and I can add in my solo ladder. And I can sort that by the tag ratio by score ratio. And maybe I want to chuck in another page break and add in a game by game, which will have the scores of all the teams throughout the entire comp. So I can just chuck that one in at the bottom, unselect the description. And then in here, now before I actually generate the rest of the report, I want to make sure it's going to the right place. So in my preferences, I've set up a directory for where my reports are going to go to. This I do intend to customize eventually so that it will just go into the same directory as where your Torn file is, because I found this to sometimes be a little bit painful and when you forget to change it. But for now, in the report section, you can specify where it's going to. So in here, I can go to the desktop, open up my PN2, and make a new folder just called reports. And then when I hit the report button, it'll just generate and stick it all directly in there. So if I then, that's still open. Let's just open up the folder that went into. So here it is here. If I open up that index file, go into teams, it has a nice fancy report that you can read.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's just a HTML file that you just basically upload to your website, essentially.
Yeah, correct. There is also built into Torn a quick and easy way to upload this to your website. So inside of here, it also, you'll note it has this upload button. So in preferences, you go into the upload section and you can specify a FTP server that you want it to connect to. Right now I've got it set up to connect to, I think, my NAS to just put the files directly onto there. So IP address, username, password, and then a directory you want it to go to within your FTP server. So you can either set it with nothing there to go directly onto the root, or you can chuck in a folder directory and it'll put it wherever you want. But then all you have to do, after you've generated your report, you hit the upload button, you wait a couple of seconds, and it'll upload, and that'll be on your website. I don't actually have my NAS actually serving those files anywhere, but they are on there.
Yeah. So if you wrote, say you're running a league, and you wrote in that little folder section week 2 or week 3 or whatever, it would automatically create a folder on your FTP.
Yes.
Called week 2.
Yes.
And then you would just have to set your website up in a way where all the folders showed up, so people could just like click on week 2 or week 3, and it would show all. The
correct.
In that folder.
You can do that, but also the way that we do it, at least with our leagues, because we do upload it directly using this to Laser Blazer's website, for instance. Because the reports are accumulative anyway, it has all the information of all the weeks in there, so you don't necessarily need to split it out on the week-by-week basis. So that does make it actually quite convenient to be able to do it that way.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. And is it like it's pretty like viewable? Like it's not all the information isn't just a wall of information?
Yeah, so I can show you an example of one of the ones I've actually got uploaded. So we'll listen later. So for instance, this one I generated at the end of the season after the finals night. So it's a single report, but it's for the entire season's worth of information. So it may not. I guess the way you're talking about, you could at least see like the change in the solo ladder. That you can't necessarily view here, but it does have all the players in there, all the games they played, all this sort of stuff here. It's worth noting as well that not only is this just a thing to look at like this, you can actually interact with it. So I could click into me, for instance, and actually view all of my games throughout the entire season.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it'll give you the full breakdown of like where you came in a game, what your score was, your tags for against, and every piece of information about every player in the league. You can view all their details of all the games they've played.
So all that information is kind of embedded in the HTML file?
Yeah, correct.
Wow. That's really cool. Are the files, like, how big was that HTML file, for example?
Oh, it's not very big. That reported, this one here that I generated before for Prenats 2, is only 6.3 megs.
Okay, that's fine. Wow, that's really cool. I reckon that's a autumn 2023 update for Brisbane Laser League,
Yeah.
I reckon.
And for anyone curious, this is actually on Doug's website as well for Last Nats, with the same sort of like clickable interface to go through all the games.
Yep. Oh, so good. So good. All right, mate. We could talk about that forever. That's so cool. I've got a limited amount of time today, so I wanted you to take us through the setup as well of a tournament, because I reckon that's a really cool. What you've done in there is, there's a huge amount of features and flexibility with how people can set their leagues up. So yeah, take it away, mate. Show us
walk
how
through
it's done.
of a brand new league. So first of all, I hit the new button. I probably did that a bit quick. Hit the new button. Give it a name. Select where you want it to go. Hit save. Select that league. Make sure it's got that little highlight on it. And then I'd go into edit. In edit, I would want to specify that since it's a league, I want it to run on victory points. Team comes first, I want them to get 6 points. Team comes second, I want them to get 4. Team comes third, I want them to get 2. This is pretty much all I would set in this area. There are a bunch of other buttons there for different types of tournaments, whether it's a team, a limb, variance in points and all this sort of stuff. So many different options available, but for a standard league, that's all I'd be doing here.
Our international viewers will be drooling at the fact that this handles elimination well.
Yes, there is a whole nother can of worms for team elim and stuff in here. Zeroing scores, eliminating players. You can even manually eliminate a player if something went weird in the game.
True.
Whole can of worms.
Okay.
So victory points in there. In here, you'd go across to handicap. For instance, if you're running a handicapped league, tick your box. For WA leagues, this is all as it is, so that's all I would change. In grades, you can customize all that sort of stuff, like I said before, but for me, I wouldn't change anything. Same in points. Maybe I'm running a doubles comp, so maybe I'd actually change that box here to doubles and change the team size down here to 2. And then from there, I can also click over to terminations. For here, it's got the standard set for Nats and all our leagues for how many points a penalty different terms are, but you can customize those values as well so that when you manage the terms, it's always going to apply the same value term. But from there, you just hit your OK button, you select a game, and you're off to the races. So I decided to make it a doubles comp, so instead of having it like this, I will add another row, add another column, and split people out into pairs of 2. Now, if they were actually on proper colored teams, it would automatically sort them for me. So that I wouldn't need to manually rearrange them, but maybe I didn't have enough colors, so we have double ups. Either way, I can rearrange them all like that, chuck them onto teams, and commit them. They're all going to come up highlighted yellow, because none of them have grades. So I can just go in there and assign all of these players different grades. Now, hopefully, you'd actually know the grades of these players, not just do it like random. But you can see if I just assign a few of them like that.
So you only do that once, and then it's remembered for the comp.
Correct. So you can see now I've...
Sorry, you finish.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you see now I've applied a grade to a few of the players, so it's given them a handicap. It's still got the ones that I haven't done anything with highlighted, but just telling you need to do them still. You can see through if you click on other ones. The ones that I've graded are still graded on other games.
Yep. Yeah, so setup is so easy. I mean, you can add the team names in the edit box, or you can just basically right click and go name the team. And then that gets remembered. It remembers the players on each team.
Yeah,
so
that's simple to set up a comp.
Yeah, super simple. And just like the install as well, you don't have to do any installation of the software, do you? You literally just open it on your desktop.
Nah, so basically at the moment, I don't have any full way to distribute it. If someone wants it, reach out to me. I can send a link to download the latest version. And then it's literally just a case of download a zip file. Inside of that zip, there's going to be a .exe. You run that exe and off it goes.
So easy. Yep, I even got it going on my little lappy today. I was just like, I wonder if it would run on my laptop. And yep, opened up a torn file. Everything just worked.
Yeah.
So that was beautiful. Awesome, man. No, that's so good. And yeah, I have one more kind of area I'd like you to kind of just touch on before we complete today, and that's the fixtures part. I haven't actually dabbled in here yet, so this is going to be an educational section for me too.
Okay. Now the easiest way to do this is probably going to be to open up Prenats 2, and then in the fixtures section. So once you've got a league set up and you've got some teams committed, you can start generating the fixtures, or alternatively at the beginning of a season, you can edit the team list first in here and add the teams in advance of actually people playing so that you have fixtures ready. So you can actually just add new teams directly from here rather than committing them later. But in the fixtures section, it'll give you a list of all the teams that you have in your torn file. You can select which ones you care about. You can deselect some if they're not there for that night, for instance. And you can set a start time for when your game is going to run. So say they're going to run tomorrow at 3 o'clock. I can say that each team wants to play 3 games and I want 15-minute intervals. And over on the right here, I can select what colors they're going to be. So red, blue, green, yellow, ref. I might change that to green instead of yellow and hit my generate button. And then give it a little bit of time to calculate.
Ooh. And that will look at, say you're running a league, it'll look at the previous fixtures from previous weeks and balance out how many times a team has played another team. So if they've played them less times throughout the season, it might go, okay, well, they're going to play them twice tonight instead of once or something like that. Yeah,
correct. So I've still got some work to do on this for optimization. You can see here it's not quite balanced yet. So I've got a little warning that comes up basically if the fixtures it's generated aren't good fixtures. So if it does something like this, you really want to keep rerunning it until it spits out a nice result. I do want to try and work on this and improve it because as more games are played, it becomes harder to find the fixtures. So it hits some issues when there's already lots of games in your season. But essentially the idea is it spits out something that looks a bit like this, and hopefully this number won't be red. And that means you've got a good, nice fixture. If it is red, you just need to basically increase the time that you're going to let it run for and then hit the generate button again. And it should eventually, it'll spit out a nice looking fixture.
Yeah.
You can tell kind of at a glance whether or not you got good fixtures as well, because you should have one game on each color. And I can see here that this team doesn't. So there's something not quite right with this one, but eventually it'll spit out something that looks nice.
And also breaks between games as well. It will start doing that with once, like if you increase the maximum time and hit generate, would it tend to give you a better fixture in terms of breaks as well?
It'll try and optimize it so that you have no games back to back if that's possible, but it's going to prioritize balancing out the number of times teams play each other more than that. Actually, now that I think about it, because I took this from a pre-nats, because of cascades, the number of times teams have played each other is very unbalanced, so it's probably going to have a hard time generating a nice balancing it back out fixture, as opposed to if I opened up a league halfway through, which is probably a better one to actually get.
So the leagues with less teams, it has less difficulty creating a nice fixture?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So if I open up this one, for instance, it's going to be much easier to get a nice fixture.
And if you're missing a team, you just unclick that team and it just creates the fixture without that team for that week.
Yes. And I just closed Torn. 1 second.
Please tell me Arbel's on elder abuse.
I don't think he was, no. Alright. So, I've got a new season opened, fixtures. They open up on my other screen. There we go. So this one's got less teams and they've played each other somewhat balanced. So if I generate these ones, it should actually come out with a nice result.
Is Fluffo still playing?
Yeah.
Hey Fluffo, if you're watching this, I worked with Fluffo under Wombat back in the 90s. So there you go. Good man,
Okay.
good man.
What? Okay, I've never seen it do that before.
Oh, we're finding all the bugs. See, this is so productive you coming on and sharing all this.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
giving you a whole bunch more work to do. There you go.
I've got the rest of my weekend planned out. It's fine.
Well, we know where it's
Alright,
going,
well,
mate. And
the idea, anyway, is that
eventually.
it works and that generates a nice fixture. We are actually using these fixtures weekly at our leagues here, and they generally work. So I don't know what's going on right now, but anyway.
It's what happens when you come on the stream, mate. Things just
everything breaks then. Yeah. The other nice thing though is it also generates the finals fixtures. So that one I'll actually open back up the larger file so that you can see it with more teams in it. Let's open up a Willerton League. It's on here. So this one we use as well. It'll generate a nice little format D.
That is so cool.
You can select and deselect. So this automatically orders it based on the team ladder as well. So this is the correct order based on what the team ladder looked like for where players will go into in there. But you can also deselect teams if they didn't make it to finals for some reason. Change between format D, 2-track, Ascension, and customize things yourself if you want more tracks, less tracks.
That's brilliant, mate. That is so good. I did not know that was in there, and that will be getting used also in autumn 2023 Brisbane Laser League.
There you go.
Beautiful. Oh, mate,
Yeah,
this
so
is
you
just
can
like,
export this as well as the fixtures to a image or chuck them onto your wherever. Save them as a SVG or PNG.
I usually
Off you
spend
go.
like 10 minutes in my little Excel spreadsheet creating that diagram.
Yeah.
I've just saved myself so much time.
Yeah, it's quite useful. Speeds things up a bit.
Yeah, totally. Mate, this is just absolutely brilliant. I'm super sort of grateful that you've been able to provide this for the community, and I know the community are as well. So thank you so much for all the time and energy you've put into crafting this for us. Is there anything you can share about other than working on the fixtures and other little things? Is there any other things you can share about what might be coming up in Torn 5 or Torn 6?
There are some things that I'm working on to try and get a bit better in Torn 5. The main thing that when I get time to actually work on it, to work on is the Torn board that I showed earlier that you throw all your reports onto. As I said, that is the original Torn board that we've been using since old versions of Torn, and it's still quite an old, outdated version. So what I'd like to do is rewrite that as well to be in a newer language and allow me to throw different types of reports on there, because at the moment I'm somewhat limited to just being able to basically put a table on there. What would be nice is if I could send more different types of information. For instance, get a worm graph on there so you can actually see like the graph as well of the team scores over time, or the worm graph with a handicap applied to it to show like what was it actually like with the handicap throughout the game and stuff like that. So it'd be nice just to be able to get something new like that running so I can put more information on there.
Awesome. And do you have a plan to allow sort of people to upload images and stuff to the reports? So ZLTAC, for example, could brand the reports with the ZLTAC logo and stuff on them?
Not currently, but that could be something interesting to try and work on, yeah. Maybe.
Okay. There we go. Just a nice way to just slicken up the reports a little bit, make them look nice and pretty. Yeah. Well, mate, thank you so much for the tour through Torn 5. If people are interested and want to reach out, are you open to receiving requests from other league coordinators and things?
Yeah, reach out to me on Facebook or email me, horsemanaj@gmail.com.
HorsemanAJ@gmail.com?
Horsemanaj@gmail.com.
Horseman AJ, so HORSMANAJ@gmail.com?
Yep, just reach out and I can see what I can do for you.
Awesome, and we'll pop it in the show notes too. Thanks so much, mate. Really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you at Nationals in a couple of months, or Pre-Nats 3. You coming to Pre-Nats 3?
I will be there.
Excellent. All right, mate. Look forward to catching up with you there. Thanks so much, mate. Take care.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me.